whole remote learning with this whole remote learning stuff, we haven't really had a chance to just chat with our kids in a while. So we spent the last half hour just chatting with the kids. So it's kind of nice. But I appreciate.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So we appreciate you joining in. We have kids in the waiting room or in the have kids on, but they're in the background, so you can't really see them. And I'm going to get my ugly face off this thing so that Coach Parton can run this interview. But I just want to say thanks for joining. It's awesome to have you here. So, yeah, Coach Parton, you take it away.
All right. Well, again, just to reiterate, thanks for coming on. Obviously, hectic schedule too, so being able to take some time and obviously working on the road too, so really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. No, my pleasure. Seriously, I apologize for the delay. It's been a crazy day, so
No worries.
My pleasure.
All right, so just kind of, we're starting out here. Obviously, the pandemic hit, and we've all been kind of cooped up, and things are starting to open up. So, what have you been doing, and how have you been holding up during this time?
We've been plugging forward. My main job on our staff is in charge of recruiting, so I've been plugging forward with that. Plenty of Zoom meetings. And staying in touch, keeping our recruits up to date with everything we have going on with Cornell Wrestling. We also are in the middle of a $5 million building expansion right now. So we're adding on 6,000 square feet to our already beautiful standalone wrestling facility. So that's going on and going through construction. Construction paused for a little bit, and then it picked back up. So now we're back to working on that. We've been doing it for a couple weeks now. So that's going on. And then just finding unique ways to train with our guys. We have a good group of guys back here right now. So finding unique ways so that they get their workouts in and they're training and they're staying up to date, it's been fun. We've been able to touch in with our creative sides a lot. So, we just plugging forward, focusing on what's in our control and maximizing that to an extent. So, yep.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Adding on to the facility, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's insane. I already thought we were spoiled, and we're even more spoiled now. So,
obviously too, when it hit, they had to, everybody was kind of unsure about everything, and then they had to cancel the NCAA. So, just kind of from the coaching side of it, and especially having to go and talk to your athletes about that. Just kind of talk us through a little bit of what that was like, how you had to break it to them and kind of how you guys handled the situation.
We're living through history right now. Be talking to my grandkids someday about the year 2020, right? So, and everything that it's brought so far. So when we had to, when the NCAA, I kind of had a feeling once the NBA had suspended the rest of the season, the night before, we kind of had a feeling that's the direction that it was headed. What more can you say other than, this is probably one of the hardest things you have to do as a coach is address that with your team, especially, all the guys that have worked so hard. We had Olympic redshirted, and medically redshirted half our team this year, and guys have really stepped in. And a lot of them, we had 8 national qualifiers, guys that, worked their butts off all year, and then the seniors on top of that. So, it's really tough, but we've been fortunate enough to have kids that, have a great perspective and a broader scheme of, what life is really all about. They're going to go on and, the seniors will go on and live incredibly successful lives. We got guys going to investment banking, computer science, guys going to work for Microsoft and all that stuff. So our kids are, exceptional young men on and off the mat. But when that night hit, we all got together at Coach Gray's house and had a pizza party, and the seniors got up and gave a little speech, and we were all together, and it was really neat to see our team come together and be there for each other during such a tough time. So,
all right. So obviously you've been around the sport for quite a long time now. You're coaching, so you've kind of made that transition. So can you just kind of describe for us what your journey's been like through the sport, like when you started and kind of, as you took it along, when you knew wrestling was going to be the sport for you?
Well, my dad, so when I was born into it, my dad was an assistant coach at Michigan State at the time. And I remember he tossed me in a wrestling tournament when I was 9 years old. I've told this story plenty of times. But he tossed me in a wrestling tournament when I was 9 years old. And I had no idea what I was doing. They put this headgear thing on me, and I'm in this singlet that's way too big for my legs, and I'm like a typical little kid out there. And I drew a girl my first match, and she headlocked and pinned me. And in my mind, there had to be an excuse why I just got beat up by a girl. And so I acted like I was paralyzed on the mat. And I started army crawling around the mat, screaming I couldn't feel my legs. I remember my dad walked out of the building, rightfully so. It was an embarrassing moment for a father. But my mom, she looked at me and she's like, Gabe, the ambulance is going to come and take you to the hospital. So all of a sudden I could start to feel my legs again. And the moral of the story is like I overcame paralysis at 9. And now I'm here today. So like you can overcome anything in this sport. And that's where it started for me. And how my dad and mom managed to keep me in a sport where that's where it started, God bless them, because man, I tried to quit so many times as a kid. I would be like, I'm going to be the next Brett Favre. That was my thing. I was going to be the next Brett Favre. Yeah. And unfortunately for me, I ended up being 5'10", and slower than dirt. So I just that wasn't the career path for me. But the beautiful thing about wrestling is, as a young man, it provided so much adversity in my life for me, to have to overcome and adapt to and transition through. That it started to really build my character. And there's plenty of times where, I felt defeated, and I had to pick, I had a great support system, and they would pick me back up, and I knew I had to go back, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of my life. So I went through middle school. I wasn't a nationally ranked recruit. You couldn't find me in the national rankings really. And the reason that I got to Cornell was because my dad and Rob Cole, they competed around the same time, and they bumped into each other at a coaches convention in Florida. Mm-hmm. And I was going to play football until going into my senior year in high school. Realized that I wasn't going to be the next Cam Newton of the world, and ended up going the wrestling route. Rob Cole, came out, saw me, and with Damian Hahn, and just felt the family, the humor, the lightheartedness, I just fell in love with the staff, the program. I came out here, the campus is beautiful. It's an Ivy League education, wrestling for one of the best programs in the country. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. And then the rest is history, I mean, and the rest is not history. There was plenty of bumps along the road. Trust me, it never ends. But that's how I got to Cornell. So
that's quite the path. So I must say.
Yeah, it's not typical. I wasn't like Mark Hall, or I wasn't Alex Facundo and some of these guys. I wasn't on that level. I was. Nobody knew who I was on a national stage. I wasn't highly recruited. I was a preferred walk-on for Michigan. They wanted me to walk on their team, and Minnesota was kind of offered me a walk-on type thing because my dad wrestled there. So, I was not a blue chip recruit by any means. So,
well, hard work definitely paid off. So,
yeah, it worked out.
The resume now.
Yeah. I think I like to say that I'm an example that any kid that sets their mind to doing something great, just if you work hard and diligently at it, then you can do anything in this life that we're given. So that's me.
So can you think of like one really big standout memory that you have that's probably one of your favorite in your career?
Yeah. So I won my first national title in St. Louis, and I got done. I'm walking off the stage, and it's in those moments that you kind of feel like you're a celebrity in your life almost. You're just like you feel like you're on top of a mountain, and there's just it's unbelievable. So I'm getting done, and I walk off the stage, and I get to the back, and people are directing me. I got to go take a drug test. And you win the nationals, you got to take a drug test. And I get to the back, and my dad is there, and he's the first person that I see, and he's got tears in his eyes, and it's just like this really special moment because we have been through so much together, you know, since I was just a little boy, you know, and this journey that we've had. And, you know, I always say this, like, you know, I got the credit for winning a national title, but I represented so many different people that had helped me along the way. And it all started really with my dad, and then, you know, my mom. And, you know, it's just like one of the best, you know, experiences to share that, because he won a national title that night too. It wasn't just me, and my family did. It wasn't just me. So that moment that we just hugged, and he told me, you know, how proud he was of me, and not because I was a national champ, but because of the man that I was. And it was a special moment. So
that's awesome, Gabe. Thanks for sharing that. It's kind of perfect timing, because I wanted to talk to you about a little bit about your dad. I mean, a lot of people that are watching this, and we're recording it, and we're going to share it out to the whole Fox Valley family. A lot of them are dads. A lot of them are dads, just like Dave, your dad. I know when he was coaching at Michigan State.
Tough internet connection.
He's just really good at pausing in one spot.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. I was like, wow.
No, I know. We'll kind of, I have the questions here too, so I'll kind of hop in here, but I know he's, you know, you guys have that Michigan connection. He grew up not far from you guys. He remembers your dad helping out with a lot of the stuff. And, you know, obviously knowing him and knowing his impact on the sport, part of the reason, you know, why we wanted to reach out to you and get you in here. But, you know, in terms of, you know, in high school and in college, you were part of two very successful programs. So we wanted to just kind of talk to you and get your perspective on, you know, what's the culture like around both of those programs that kind of helps build that, you know, greatness that those programs carry?
There's so much, the relationships extend like so far off the mat, you know. All those guys, you know, we're very different personality wise. I mean, of course, all human beings are, but our values that were instilled in us by the staff were the same. And my father and his staff, the way that he went about it, he made it very evident that, you know, it started from the top bottom. So, you know, his staff and him were all on the same page, and that trickled down just like a family. You know, your mom and dad are on the same page. It's going to trickle down to the kids. And the relationships, you know, we were going tubing on the rivers, we were doing games, and wrestling is such a hard sport. And it's so physically and mentally demanding as it is. It's important to associate it with fun. And it makes it more fun when you're brothers with the guys on your team. It's not a bunch of individuals. And my dad and, you know, at Cornell, Rob Cole, the two kind of leaders of the programs that I've been under, really understood that. And then they also understand, well, Rob doesn't need to do this because he's a visual in college, but my dad really understood the importance of a youth developmental program that was important for the high school level as well. So he put in place a youth developmental program that was extremely important for, you know, to feed to the high school, and those kids all, you know, grow up together in the wrestling, and they're you know, that those relationships started at a young age. So I would say the most important thing was that those relationships extended past the mat. They weren't just we didn't just see each other in the wrestling room every day. We saw each other grill outs, tubing down rivers, doing stuff like that. So
that's definitely what we're trying to do. We're trying to build here with Fox Valley, you know, as we have that, we call it the FVWC family. So, you know, it's nice to hear that's definitely something that, you know, obviously is important. We know it's important, but it's always nice to get that message reinforced that, you know, the more we can build around each other, the more we can be a family, the longer we all stay together, the more success we're going to have on and off the mat. So that's
absolutely. It's a short window in the sport, man. It's you know, everybody remembers you. You're a big, you know, you're a household name for a little bit, but like the most important things, I tell people this all the time, like, you know, it's not the national titles and the things that I accomplished that I value most from the sport. It's the lessons that I've learned and the people that I've met along the way. You can't put a price tag on that. You can't put a trophy on that. Those are things that you value the most, because someday we're all going to be 50, 60 years old, and you know, those are the relationships that you'll have. You know, and wrestling is what brought that into my life. So that's what I draw value from in this sport. Nothing that I accomplished, you know, I'm proud of those things, but the people and the lessons that I've learned in my life, that's definitely the most important thing. So
Definitely.
Awesome.
All right, you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, man. I've been having internet
Freeze
issues
frame, man. Yeah.
the last couple weeks. So I don't even know what question you just asked. Did you ask question 5, Carton?
I did, yeah.
Awesome. So I actually was kind of going to skip around a little bit because you were talking a little bit about your dad. And as I was saying, we're recording this and we're going to post it on YouTube and stuff. And we have a lot of dads that are going to be watching this. And one of our questions was, well, who is your biggest influence, growing up? And I think obviously your dad.
Easily, yeah. You got that. Easily my dad.
Right. So with that being said, I think your dad was exceptional when it comes to the sport of wrestling. One of our mission statements at the Fox Valley Wrestling Club is to promote the sport in general. Just promote the sport of wrestling, whether it's girls wrestling, boys wrestling, high school, young kids, whatever it may be, college. And your dad, I've followed the Dean family for a while now because Lowell is right down the street from my hometown. And man, when he was coaching at Michigan State, I remember he started a few years later. I think he started up New Way or My Way, correct?
Yep.
And
it started My Way. My Way was the first thing, and then it transitioned into New Way.
And that's become huge. I know when I was coaching at North Central, he actually came to North Central, ran a tournament for us, and it was just watching him work and do his thing is amazing. So if you could maybe share with us dads or share with us coaches, just describe a little bit the influence your dad had and what he does to promote the sport and how he's got where he's at, that'd be awesome.
My biggest piece of advice for young dads, and this is sitting from your young boy's perspective, because that was me, and I'm not a father, so I'm no expert on parenting, but drawing from what I've learned from my dad is do not have an agenda or an ego involved with the development of your son or your daughter. Approach wrestling from a fundamental character developmental standpoint. You don't put your kids in something that you want them to win trophies in, or you want them to stand out amongst the rest, or you want them to be on top of the podium. Put them in the sport because you want them to develop character, and that's what my dad always understood. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about him at all, and it never has. When we lost, we were going for ice cream. When we got beat, we were going to go watch a movie afterwards. We had a bad practice. He took us to get 7-Eleven slushies all the time. I mean, it wasn't. I never doubted for a second as a kid that my dad didn't unconditionally love me and my brother when we were coming through sports. And when a dad takes a kid and yells at him or screams at him after he loses, he's really just distancing his relationship with his son and making his son feel like, all that he really values is the outcome of his matches, which in turn there puts more stress on his son anyways when he competes. The development of the character is where my dad always approached sports from, and how he raised Max and I through not just wrestling and football and any sports that we played. And that is the most important thing. So if you have an ego, you need to chuck it at the door, and because it's only going to hurt your relationship with your son in the long scheme of things. And I appreciate that I had a father that really understood that.
Yeah. And I know you said you're not a father, and your words are powerful. Trust me. I mean, it means a lot coming from a guy like you. Best in the nation, man. And you had a dad who was an awesome wrestler and who's promoting the sport. So you guys know what you're talking about. So it means a lot coming from you, and it's a good message that we hear. We need to hear that, because you know how wrestling is. You watch those little kids tournaments. I mean, it gets crazy. Some of those dads, they do exactly what you say not to do. It's bad. And so it's a good reminder for me as a dad, for Coach Parton as a dad, for all of our dads, and even as coaches. It's a good reminder for us that, we like to win here and there. That's cool, but it's about something much greater than that. So thanks a lot for sharing that. I appreciate it. I'm going to get my ugly face off this thing.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
So we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit and kind of lighten the mood a little bit. So just kind of going back to your, we try and break this up into just some background, and then, getting into your wrestling experience as a wrestler. So you've mentioned that you played 2 sports, and this is one of the struggles. I also coached the high school team that Fox Valley feeds into as well. And I know one of the biggest struggles we're seeing right now is getting football players to transition into the sport of wrestling, because there's all the myths of I'm going to lose weight and I'm not going to be big enough and I'm not going to be strong enough. So can you just kind of talk us through a little bit about, messages you may have to guys that you're recruiting now, or, or maybe helping recruit when they were coming to Cornell? As a former high school football player and wrestler, what benefits did you see from that, and why is it important for those guys to partake in both sports?
First of all, more sports, more opportunities, right? I mean, more sports you play, the more opportunities that you're going to have, not on to the developmental side, and also, to accomplish things. So if I just played football, we wouldn't be sitting here talking today, and I always thought I was going to be a football player. But that's number one. Number two is if you're going to play a college sport, you're going to focus on that sport almost every day. So enjoy your childhood, because when you get to college, when you're focusing on it every day, you're going to have to pull from yourself internally. The college coaching is not the high school coaching. No one's going to drag you out of bed and tell you to have to go to practice. Like, you need to be able to do those things. Nobody's going to tell you what to eat. Nobody's going to tell you what time to go to bed on. We tell guys, we give them advice, but I'm not holding. They're grown men. I'm not holding their hand. So you need to be extremely internally motivated when you get to this level. And a good way to be that way is that you didn't just burn yourself out as a kid doing one sport your whole life. When I got to college, I was eager to learn. I had a huge learning curve. I was able to develop quickly because I built a foundation of athleticism, playing football and wrestling, and splitting that time up, that I could, I could learn quickly and jump. And, my curve was a lot bigger than some of the guys that I came in with, some of the best guys in the country. So I encourage multiple sports because there's a lot more opportunity involved, and your development is on a higher curve than a lot of people that you come in with.
So would you say that now as a coach and, as you're looking at recruits?
Absolutely. I got a recruit right now. I love him because he's so raw. He's super athletic. He played football. He was a great football player in high school. Actually, a couple of them. I got a couple guys that are coming in this next class, a couple great two really good high school football players, and I know they're raw, but they're eager to learn. They're the two of the most motivated kids you could find. One out of Pennsylvania, one out of Ohio, and they're the most down to earth motivated kids that are coming in the class. So I love that. I look for that because I know those kids. I mean, I was one of those kids, so maybe I'm a little biased, but I know the potential that they have once they get to college. So
when you were in high school, we have guys obviously or kids, I should say, that are starting to specialize, but we have a lot of guys too that we try and get them in, and they're trying to balance both sports. So what was your training like? Did you just keep wrestling in wrestling season, or did you try and find time anywhere in the fall or the spring? What did you kind of do to not only keep the sport fresh, but also keep training for both?
I lifted I lifted a few times a week. I jump into practice, but I wasn't just focused on one sport. I was at my football lifts. I was at my 7-on-7s for football, and then I'd go to wrestling practice, a handful of times a week, and I'd be working on skill there. But it was like you take the structure down. You have structure, but you don't want to be in season practices. You're more of a learning approach to training in the off season. So trying to soak in more and more things, and not having as much structure as in season, kind of letting you just come in and play wrestle for 45 minutes to an hour, working on different technique and different positions. And then when I was playing football, I'd be football lifting and doing 7-on-7s and going around with my team. So
I mean, obviously, I played both sports in high school as well, and I know both take a very large task on your body, and
yeah.
I know especially too, that transition time, because I've coached in Illinois and I've coached in Florida, and in Illinois, the deeper in the playoffs you go, the more the overlap. Florida, it's a lot quicker. So obviously you're trying to get into the room, but you're also trying to heal your body. So can you just talk us through a little bit, from the mental side and also the physical side? How did you kind of find that balance to where you knew you were taking care of yourself, but you also were taking care of yourself mentally as well? To where
the important things to take care of yourself mentally, getting the right amount of sleep at night, not staying up till 3 a.m. playing video games. Sleep is so important. and talked to plenty of people that know a lot more than I do about sleep, but how important that is for your recovery and your mental state and just your overall attitude towards a lot of things. Sleep is important, and nutritionally, taking care of yourself, eating the right things, getting the right things in your body at the right times, is incredibly important. And then just maximizing things that are in your control like that, and taking care of those things, making sure you're recovering right, jumping in ice baths, stretching, doing those kind of things, was able to manage that workload. And it helped, those things help both mentally and physically.
So we're going to kind of transition a little bit. We have some questions coming in from our youth guys. So we're going to let one of them pop in here now and ask his question to you. So let's just see. Let's see if I can get him in here. Adam, can you help me out here and get him on? I don't know. Still trying to figure out this Zoom thing. We've been doing it all spring.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Okay.
it changes, it's.
There he is.
Oh, here we go. What's up, buddy?
William. All right, good. All right, sorry. I was trying to do that from the moment you said something, and I'm just messing with my computer. All right, William, you had a question that I think is a perfect timing to ask this. So, William, why don't you ask Gabe or Coach Dean the question you had?
What's your favorite wrestling move?
Man, that's a good question. There's a lot of them. My favorite is probably we call it a cow catcher, where you're cutting a guy and then you smoke him with you smoke with like almost, I think maybe you guys probably call it a right move, but you smoke them and you pin them. So that's probably one of my favorite wrestling moves. I'm a little bit notorious for that in our room. That's what I like to catch guys in all the time. So it's like a young move, but it works at the next level. So
we'll have to show that first practice next year. Done. Sound good, William?
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you, buddy.
Thank you for sharing, William. All right, Coach, did you want to follow up with those other questions?
We got a couple more if we can see if we got a couple more questions coming in, so we can let them hop on now and ask.
All right, it's going to take like 20 minutes to try and figure out how to get. All right, here we go. Got it.
Okay.
I think.
Maybe.
Lincoln, you're on. You're up.
Yeah, you.
You're asking it.
Ask your question. You're up, dude.
Hit me, big dog.
Lincoln, everybody sees your face. Get in there and ask a question.
Don't be shy, man. Hey, don't be shy. There's no such thing as a bad question.
What foods did you prefer to eat before your matches?
I was throwing a lot of carbs down because I was depriving myself of a lot of carbs leading up to making weight. So I was rice. I usually get, a Chipotle bowl, but I would just get the meat and rice, and I would just throw the rice down. Crackers. We have these things called honey stingers. So our dietitian is now the head dietitian of the UFC. So that's the guy that I got to learn under. Thankfully, I was blessed. He was a 2-time All-American for Cornell. Things like that, a lot of carbs, just simple carbs you get in, if you wanted to prep, I know some guys ate a lot of sweet potatoes, but a lot of carbs. So bagels, cream cheese, light on the cream cheese, but, bagels and, stuff like that, sandwiches.
Awesome. Well, on that note, you were talking about some of your favorite moves and some of the ways that you kind of keep yourself primed and stuff. What are some techniques or strategies or moves in general that you think as a kid, maybe as coaches should really be pushing?
Fundamentals, basic stuff. Nobody needs to be hitting inside trips and throws. I would focus on leg attacks. Leg attacks, combinations, transition in between ties. A lot of stuff that you guys watch and, you see best guys in the world doing are fundamental stuff. Their positioning is amazing. Their attacks are efficient. They're great in ties. They're comfortable there. So I would focus a lot on leg attacks and transitioning between ties, hand fighting, and positioning. So, I wouldn't get too crazy. That's for sure. That's what the best guys in the world are doing anyways.
Yeah. So we have another question from Wyatt. So Wyatt, if you want to join in, but while you're waiting, so basically what you're saying, Gabe, is we shouldn't be teaching like the flying squirrels, backward kicks, 360s anymore?
Nope. That is unnecessary at this age.
Dang, that's like my favorite move. All right. Wyatt, you getting in or what, buddy? You had a great question. Go ahead.
So how nervous were you before your national championship match?
Well, I was pretty, I was pretty at peace, like I'm sure you got a little butterflies going through, you're about to walk out in front of 20,000 people and you're going to be on ESPN and all that kind of fun stuff, right? But the focus can't be there. The focus is it's just like you're going in the room and you're wrestling another match, then that's where your focus has to be, because everything else is just a distraction at that point from attaining your goal. So I was focused, I had my game plans. I was going out and just sticking to them, and it was like nobody else was there. It was just like being in the practice room, and that was the most important thing. So, but yeah, did I have butterflies? Of course I did. How could you not? It's a crazy atmosphere. But nerves I was blocking out so that they wouldn't get in the way of staying focused on my task. So
awesome. Wyatt, that was a great question.
Awesome. Yeah.
and it kind of brings me to another question that we had on the list earlier that we didn't quite get to. It's like, the physical, the athletic side of wrestling is all good and grand. You can teach that. But the other side of it is that mental piece. And that's something as coaches we tend to forget a lot. At least I've noticed that throughout the years. How do you specifically address the whole mental aspect as both an athlete, but now also as a coach? What is any advice you have for either us coaches or us athletes?
So the biggest thing that human beings, our nature is to tend to try to control things and outcomes that are out of our control. So, because we, especially, motivated, goal-oriented human beings, they want this goal so bad that and just trust me, I'm guilty of this as much as anybody, but they stress out and they think about it so much and they want it so bad that really they take their focus away from the things that are in their control. So mentally being able to discipline yourself, no matter what your environment is, no matter what's coming in, what's going out, you got a bad test grade, your girlfriend broke up with you, you got, you had a bad practice, whatever it is, being able to discipline yourself to focus on those things that are in your control and separate your, and having a really clearness, I would say, in yourself of your being able to control your emotions and being able to detach them from certain situations. So like I said, it just goes back to the same things, like for me mentally, I was at peace no matter what when I stepped on the mat, because I know I did everything that I possibly could to put myself in the best position to attain that goal. And when you see people stressing, usually they're either trying to they're not living the right lifestyle, or they're trying to control those things that are out of their realm. So
yeah, and I think that control what you can control piece it carries over. It's not
simple but hard to do.
Yeah. It's so true. Simple but hard to do. That's a good way of putting it. But yeah, it carries over in so many realms, not only like as a wrestler, but as a teacher now, or as a coach, or in all professions moving along, whether you're a kid or you're an adult. I mean, control what you control. And that's something we can all learn from. Yeah. Colvin, are you ready? I'm going to unmute you, or maybe you got to unmute yourself. Colvin's got another question for you.
All right, Colvin, hit me, buddy.
You got to unmute yourself, Jim.
Here we go. Oh. All right, let's hear it.
Colvin, do you know sign language? Come on, man. Oh, man. Oh, the beauties of technology.
Gotta love it.
All right. Well, Colvin, you keep working on it because we have another question.
So I was going to kind of piggyback off the mental side of it, because that's kind of another question that we have is, so, to kind of center yourself, what was your pre-match routine like to kind of help you start to focus? Because, that was a big thing we talked about with the kids too towards the end of the season, was finding that switch, finding that thing that was specific to them.
I would get my, food and, hydrate and all that stuff. And then I was really honestly just joking around with my teammates before. I would just sit in the back, hang out, relax, be playing around on my phone or joking around with my teammates. That was usually my pre-match routine. I didn't listen to music. That I think music spikes your adrenaline, and you don't need to be wasting that kind of energy before. So, just staying emotionally just at peace and, focused on my task. And then about, 10 minutes before, I do a little stance of motion, hit some sprints just to jack my heart rate up, and then go out and take care of business. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. All right, Colvin, you ready?
There we go.
Hit me, buddy.
You're up, bud.
Oh, I think they're still muted.
All right. Well, then, Colvin, we're just going to you can mouth it, but I'm going to say it. How about that? Colvin wants to know what is your go-to setup for a shot?
I was a big high single guy, so I would scrape off that thumb block or that hand that was posted right here, and then I would scrape right into a high level attack. So I'd scrape off the thumb block and right to level change right into a high level attack, high level single. So pretty simple. Like I said, very fundamental.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my go-to.
Nice.
So, you made the transition. We're kind of just going with kids and then bouncing back here a little bit, but can you talk to us, especially as a high school coach, we get young guys in that are just coming out of the sport themselves. What was that transition like going from wrestling with those guys to now being their coach in the room?
It's tough. You really have to, you go from kind of more of a selfish mindset just because you're taking care of yourself, you take care of your team,
Mm-hmm.
to a completely selfless job. So being able to, the transition was tough. You're not trying to win national titles anymore. Everything's about them. And you really, my dad really helped me understand that a life full of service is the best life to live. And that became very clear to me as my younger brother came through the ranks, because I stepped out and he stepped in. So I had a decision to make, what kind of man I wanted to be going forward in the rest of my life. And, I've found out and I put faith in, and I know for a fact that, if you live a life full of service and to serve others, it's a great path. So, and that's what coaching is. So, you'll be eternally happy. And I'm fortunate enough that I get to do that as a career, and, have a really clear understanding of that. So
was it tougher too with obviously him being your younger brother and then having to have that, that separation at times?
Yeah, of course. We're on a very, very efficient working basis now, but there was definitely bumps along the road. Don't get me wrong. He had, the pressure of stepping into, and having a high expectation from the get-go because of his, because of me, and the same school, same weight class, and credit to him because I didn't have that. So he's managed that incredibly well, and he's blossoming and having a wonderful career. And I don't like wrestling with him anymore. So, he's put me into retirement pretty quick.
So kind of sticking on the coaching side of it, we're always trying to, not do more in terms of teaching too much, but we're always trying to look to see, what drills are out there. So, between your youth days, your high school days, collegiately, are there drills that you did consistently throughout, all the way through? And, and to kind of piggyback off of that, what would be some of your favorite drills that maybe you didn't do all the way through, but you kind of picked up along the way?
I can't really say like a favorite drill. I would say like the biggest thing is like focus on positions and spend a lot of time there. Focus on different hand fighting, ties, and spend a lot of time there, and experiment, try things. I'm a big fan of sparring, and play wrestling. Put yourself in positions where a guy's got a whizzer, or you're in an underhook, or you're in a seatbelt, or you're in a crackdown, or different positions, and then really experimenting and working hard there. And then there's days where you come in and, man, it's like a hands-on drill. You just see it, like, it's like who breaks first, and you're doing reps, and you're doing different setups, and you're just, going at it. So, but I can't say there's like a drill specifically. It's just like in an understanding of that, you needed to really push yourself hard in the drill and in the spar, and then, focusing on an area or a position to really get better at that day, and not trying to jump from one thing to the next, a million different things.
Right.
I think was the most important thing. So
I got to kind of follow up with you a little bit. So we have kind of run into, from some of the older youth guys up through the high school guys, it seems like the definition of sparring kind of is different from person to person. And, it's one thing when we say it in the room and then we see something going on. So can you just kind of walk us through what you really mean by sparring? Like, what would that look to you, kind of pace wise, things like that?
It depends on the day. So if you're going really hard, it could almost look like live. But if you're working on more of a technique side, then it looks, like you're getting it. Your partner has to understand to let you into the position. Then he gives you a slight, a 20%, 30% feel, and makes you kind of wrestle through some things. And you're working on, your transitioning, your transition offense through those different positions. So, and, if it's a light day, that's a 20% feel. If it's a medium day, that's a 40 to 50% feel. If it's a hard day, that's a 70 to a 90% feel, and so I kind of do it by percentages, like if I'm, and I understand that as a coach, a guy, like I want a guy to really work on getting to his high crotch and finishing well, I'm going to give him different feels. I'm going to bump him with my hips this way. I'm going to hit his head that way. I'm going to move him into different things. And I want to see him, transition through those positions into the right way. So,
kind of preseason wise, or, I mean, obviously by the time they get to Cornell, there's not as big of a learning curve. Like you said, though, there are some guys that kind of, they're still a little raw. They still have a little bit higher of a learning curve, but, how do you kind of explain those drills, and how do you explain being a good partner too? Because that's also obviously, as we're developing these guys, these wrestlers from a young age, we really want them to understand what it means to be a good partner too.
Yeah. We put them with the experienced guys, putting them with the older guys, and, letting the older guys kind of take the realm and teach them a little bit. Being a teacher, it helps you really understand, the technique even at a greater scale. So, or in the sparring at a greater scale. So, making sure that they're mixing in with the older guys and getting that experience, and, just showing them how to move, just starting to teach them technique and show them how to move through positions and spar in those areas. They pick it up, with the combination of coaching and, being with the older guys and the veterans on the team. So,
and to kind of play off of that too, as a wrestler and as a coach, what did you look for out of your coaches when you were kind of going through those drills and those things in the room? What were you looking for? And then as a coach, what are you trying to relay to your athletes, to your wrestlers?
Well, what I was looking for was guidance, just like, just basic, like, hey, like, am I doing this right? Am I going here right? Am I moving my hands here right? Like, what am I doing that right? And then, as a wrestler, sorry, what was the second part of that question?
As a wrestler, you were looking for those, and then as a coach, as you're kind of walking the room, what are you really kind of, what are you looking to communicate with your wrestlers as you're going in now as a coach?
Just like, like the right technique, hard work, making sure that, if it's a hard day, that they're keeping the right pace, and they're not, I don't think we have a lot of kids that like to slack off. They're usually in there grinding pretty good, but, you got to light a fire every now and then. So making sure that they're, staying at the level that they should be at, the percentage of that spar that they should be at. So
that's definitely, I think, the thing that we're trying to always find too, especially, the younger guys, we're trying to make it fun, but with the high school guys, that little bit of fire, that's kind of the thing that we're always trying to balance out. So I think we're kind of coming close to the end here. So just kind of a couple last things. We have one more question from our guy. So I'll see if I can add him on. Otherwise, I'll just ask it real quick. So when you were getting ready for a match, did you have any favorite song that you like to listen to?
I didn't listen to any music before a match, believe it or not. So there's the answer to that. Pretty short. I'm sorry, but yeah, I didn't listen to it.
No, everybody's got their own go-to. So, so kind of just wrapping up here, kind of last words of advice. Obviously, you've been at a high level. I know a lot of the coaches, myself included, we were able to see, your career collegiately, and now we're excited to see your coaching career. So, for our wrestlers, as it gets tough, because, our IKWF season goes from November through March. It's longer than our high school season. So, obviously it starts to wear, and even on our high school guys too, we get to that point in the season. What advice do you have for our wrestlers in terms of, as things start to get a little bit harder, as that adversity starts to build up during the season?
Keep a really good perspective. Have a broader scope than a narrow scope. And, the emotions that you feel given a situation typically aren't the right emotions that you should have to react to it. So how you feel because you had a bad practice, or how you feel because things aren't going right, typically aren't the emotions associated with it to solving the problem. Mm-hmm. And if we tend to react on those emotions when we feel them, we tend to dig ourselves a deeper hole usually. So, taking some time, decompressing, keeping things light, have a learning approach, have a learning mindset compared to an expectation, live to a standard, and just enjoy it. Find enjoyment in the struggle just as much as you do, and when you do things right. Yeah. The struggle and the adversity is a sign that you're out there and you're putting yourself out there to try to accomplish something great. A lot of people are too scared to do that. So enjoy that process as much as you enjoy, the things that are comfortable, that just enjoy being uncomfortable. It's a privilege. So
definitely. And then, so on the coaching side of it, as the season wears on, both in the high school room and in the youth room, and especially a lot of us, being dads, what would your word of advice be as a coach, kind of as that season wears on, and, we see our guys starting to struggle, but, we feel it too. There is that point in the season, a little bit, it even starts to wear on us a little bit mentally. So I would say kind of that's a twofold. What advice do you have in terms of helping the kids maintain it being fun and finding that fun in it? And then also too, as a coach that's starting to feel that, how do we start to kind of combat that fatigue a little bit?
Sit yourself down, look yourself in the mirror, and remind yourself why you got into coaching in the first place and why you chose this profession. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't for money. It wasn't for fame. It wasn't for any other reason other than the fact that you chose a life to serve. And kudos to you, because not a lot of people have the guts to do that. And then think about it from the kid's perspective. Always think about it from the kid's perspective and how you can better them on an individual and as a whole. And that usually brings me peace. So that's my big thing for when things get tough, things get hard, you start to have the negative thoughts. You just go back to that same purpose that lies within you, why you do it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's really powerful stuff. Cause it's, especially balancing both, and then obviously the family aspect of it and things like that too. You had already mentioned earlier on that, that was obviously part of your family growing up. So it's positive to hear those reaffirmations and things like that.
And trust me, I feel it too. So yeah. I have to remind myself all the time. So.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. So Gabe, thanks a lot for coming on. I really appreciate it. It means a lot having a lot of the similar messages that we try and preach come from another voice, mm-hmm. and one that is way more big time than us. So we appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, guys. And thanks for having me on. I'm gonna go get some dinner with my girlfriend here. She's gonna eat me. So
well, tell her we said hi.
And I will.
And good luck with all the recruiting. I know that stuff gets crazy. So take care.
Hey, thanks, and let me know if I can do anything for you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on. Take care. Okay.
We appreciate it. You take care too. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
All right. Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye. All right, so everybody that's still in the room, remember, we are keeping this going. We appreciate you guys coming on, checking it out, asking your questions. That's always, as much fun as it is for you guys to be able to pop on and ask those guys questions, trust us, it's as much fun for us to watch you guys too. It's awesome. This is definitely something that you guys are going to remember. You know, you're able to connect with some of the top names in the sport. And that, you know, last week, this week, and moving on all summer, we're going to keep having big names, big people. So Coach Adam would like me to announce now our guest next week is a local guest for us. So he is the head coach at Wheaton College. He is a 2-time member of the Olympic Greco-Roman wrestling team, and that is Coach Jim Grunwald. So he's going to be our guest next week. We're going to be talking a lot of the same things. As you guys go throughout the week, if you have a question, these have been great so far. You know, don't forget to write those down. Ask them on here. We're going to be able to pop you guys on. We're getting better with the Zoom stuff, so we appreciate you guys being patient with us. So thank you guys for coming out. Coach Adam, you got anything?
You guys rock. Thank you.
All right. So next week, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., you guys are free to hop on early, chat with us. We'll have a little icebreaker again like Coach Adam had this week. And,
I won't have that. You'll have it this
I'll have
time.
something ready. But get those questions ready. Check out social media. We'll have everything posted there. And then also keep an eye out on YouTube. Tell your friends, anybody that didn't get a chance to hop on. We luckily recorded. Coach Holger's the whiz with being able to put everything online for us. So we also greatly appreciate that. So, all right. You guys have a great week, great night. Go relax. Go for a run.
Peace out.
Peace out. We will see you guys next week.